Hey, hey, ghosty goblins. Happy Halloween. Michelle here, and welcome to Amputated from Addiction. Halloween is a special day for me, not only because kids get to dress up and people have parties and you give out candy and you have fun, but I also gave birth to my middle child on Halloween, and I'd like to share that story with you. In 2010, I was very deep in my addiction. Um, I was homeless on and off. I was prostituting, and I was using real heavy. And I still managed to get pregnant. Definitely not by choice or because I wanted to, but that's what happens when you have unprotected sex. Um, so in June of 2010, oddly enough, it was a day I'd gotten arrested for something. In Baltimore City Detention Center, I found out I was pregnant. Um, I was released, I think, 2 days later after being bailed out. And my thoughts were just, what do I do? I'd had kids before, but never under these types of circumstances. So I made an appointment with my OBGYN, and they referred me to the CAP program, which is basically a methadone program for pregnant women. And so I kind of dicked around with going there, and then I ended up back in jail because I was sentenced to almost 8 months. And I was put on methadone while I was locked up in county jail. And after 6 weeks, I appeal bonded out, and I went to the CAP program and stayed there for about 2 months. Let's see, so that put this up in, like, to the beginning of October. And I still used on and off through the remainder of the pregnancy. Towards the end, it was more on than off, and I was still smoking crack. Then on October 30th, my mom pulls up and finds me in the area that I was working. And she hadn't heard from me in a few weeks, so she was just checking to make sure I was still alive and that I was, doing okay considering the circumstances. And she took me to McDonald's to get me something to eat, and she gave me a couple bucks, and then she dropped me off. Then, later that evening, one of my regulars picked me up, and something told me I shouldn't be having sex. I was getting very close to my due date. I think my due date was like November 10th or something. And something told me it was time to lay off the D. Well, he cajoled me with a couple extra dollars, and I agreed. And about 3 hours after I saw him, I started having contractions. I was hanging out with my friend Brandy, and we were at our friend Charles's house, and we were getting high. And I remember walking with Brandy about 3 blocks to go meet one of the crack dealers to get another bag of ready. And we go back down to Charles's house, and we're all getting high, and the contractions just aren't getting any better. Well, heroin's an opioid. Opioids are supposed to help with pain. So, rational thought, hey, if I do some more dope, it'll ease the pain a little bit. So, did a little more dope. Didn't really help the pain too much. The night passed on, and it became morning. And at about 7 o'clock, I called my mom, and I'm like, Mom, hey, can you come pick me up? I think I'm in labor. So she comes and picks me and Brandy up, and I hadn't done much research, and the information I had found turned out to be false information anyway, but I thought if I went to Delaware, I would have a better chance at keeping the baby. Well, turns out Delaware's laws are worse than Maryland's, and I'm glad I didn't make it to Delaware, but we hopped on the Beltway, and then we were shooting up 95. Well, right before exit 67 at mile marker 6, or right after exit 67, mile marker 67.4 on 95 northbound, my mom pulls over, and she's on the phone with 911, and my water broke. About 3 minutes later, maybe, Mom, I gotta push. Well, right there in the backseat of my mother's Ford Escape, little Tristan Anthony was born. He was born at 8/17 on October 31st. He was 5 pounds, 15 ounces, and I think he was like 18 inches long. He was a little guy. He was my littlest. Paramedics came and transported me to the hospital. And once we arrived at the hospital, I was starting to hemorrhage. And I just remember laying in the bed just screaming because the doctor was elbow deep inside of me, just pulling out blood clots. And I remember clenching my knees shut, saying, if I will lay here and die before you touch me again, unless you give me something for the pain. I don't know if any of you women have experienced anything like that, but it's not pleasant. And yeah, I would have rather died than to have been touched again because I was in just so much pain. Well, they ended up giving me a little something, but my mom managed to calm me down. She just kept saying, little Tristan's over there sleeping. Don't wake him up. Try and be strong. And they were eventually able to control the bleeding. And all was well. Tristan experienced mild withdrawal symptoms, but it wasn't anything harsh. And I'm just very, very grateful that I gave birth to a healthy baby, despite the wreckage I caused my body and his body during the pregnancy. Because I was using, CPS was involved right away, and upon his release from the hospital at 5 days old, he went into foster care. And let's see, I didn't get clean until Tristan was like 10 months old, 10 or 11 months old, 10 months old. And after I went to rehab in 2011 and was in a recovery house, CPS was working with me, and I was trying to get Tristan back. But something just wasn't right. I couldn't put my finger on it. I ended up meeting my husband, and we got pregnant with our first child very quickly. And it wasn't until the end of my pregnancy that I was able to recognize what that thing missing between Tristan and I was. And it was that bond that a mother shares with her child. I didn't have it. When Tristan was born, using was more important. I know that sounds like an asshole thing to say, but it's the truth. It was getting high was more important than my child. Any of my children, really. His foster parents were the ones that woke up in the middle of the night and fed him, and changed his diapers, and took him to his appointments, and hugged him, and kissed him, and loved him, and provided for him. It wasn't me, it was them. And I made the decision to let them adopt him. And I could not have hand selected better parents for him. His mom and dad are absolutely wonderful. He wants and needs for nothing. And he's loved by so many people. He truly was put here for a reason, because he's brought a lot of love to a lot of people, and a lot of people love him. And he knows who I am, and he knows his brothers and his sister, and he knows Grandma and Grandpa and my mom. And yeah, I I made the best decision I thought I could make for him, and I wouldn't change it. And that's the story of Tristan. So happy birthday, Tristan! And for everybody else, deuces.